Chapter 1. The Dusty Outpost and the Girl in Rags. The blistering twin suns of Xylox, 7 cast an unforgiving glare across the vast barren plains, where the earth itself seemed cracked and broken like ancient pottery shattered millennia ago. The planet was a forgotten shard of the galaxy, a relic of mineral wealth stripped dry and left to wither beneath endless swirling storms of rust-red dust that clawed mercilessly at every exposed surface. The air was thick with grit and the bitter tang of decay, and the silence was heavy, broken only by the distant clatter of metal scraping against stone, the faint hiss of gas vents, and the occasional distant howl of windswept creatures that had adapted to this harsh, godforsaken environment. Here at the farthest reaches of explored space, in a mining outpost barely surviving on the edge of existence, life was a constant struggle, a daily battle against the planet, the elements, and the crushing weight of hopelessness. The settlement, known simply as New Cresta, was a ramshackle collection of structures welded and bolted from the remains of ancient ships, broken machinery, and scrap metal scavenged from the surrounding wasteland. Rusted pipes twisted through the walls, hissing intermittently as they vented overheated steam, and flickering neon signs blinked erratically, struggling to cast their pale light over grimy doorways. The outpost was alive with a mixture of dust-covered miners, weathered traders, and desperate scavengers who clung to the hope of a better tomorrow, a hope as fragile as the brittle ground beneath their feet. Amid this world of cracked helmets, patched uniforms, and worn boots, there was little room for innocence, little tolerance for weakness, and almost no patience for the broken. Yet on the far edge of this bleak outpost, where the red sands met the jagged rocks of the outer cliffs, a small figure moved quietly, her steps soft and tentative against the hard ground. She was a child, though her kind did not measure age in the same way humans did. To any passerby, she would seem fragile, a ghost among the living, barely more than a wisp of shadow swallowed by the dust. Her skin was pale with a faint blue sheen, almost translucent beneath the grime that clung to her thin frame like a second skin. Her large, expressive eyes glimmered violet under heavy lids rimmed with dirt and exhaustion. The delicate curves of her face were marred by streaks of dried tears and patches of dust, while her hair, a tangled mass of silvery threads, fell raggedly around her shoulders. The clothes she wore were nothing more than rags, stolen scraps of fabric stitched clumsily together, tattered and worn from exposure to the planet's relentless climate. This alien girl was known only as Miri. She had arrived at New Cresta by accident or perhaps fate when her small transport ship had malfunctioned and crashed in the nearby Badlands. The harsh terrain had nearly claimed her, but a chance encounter with a wandering scavenger had saved her from certain death. Since then, she had drifted through the settlement like a shadow, barely noticed by the hardened inhabitants who had little interest in the plight of a lone, lost child. Miri had no family, no home, and no resources to call her own. She survived on scraps, the kindness of strangers, and the occasional barter for small favors. But despite her hardships, there was a spark in her, a quiet determination and innocence that refused to be extinguished. On this particular day, the suns were sinking low behind the jagged horizon, casting long shadows and bathing the outpost in an orange-red glow that made the dust seem to dance like embers caught in the wind. Miri's small frame moved with purpose as she weaved her way between rusted machinery and abandoned cargo containers, heading towards the center of the settlement. Her stomach growled with hunger, a gnawing emptiness that had become all too familiar in recent weeks. Water was scarce, and food even more so. The miners rarely shared, and the traders charged exorbitant prices for the meager supplies they carried. For Miri, every day was a gamble, one more day to survive until she could figure out what to do next. Her destination was the old maintenance bay, a cavernous hangar filled with relics of past technologies and forgotten machines left to corrode in silence. Here lived one of the few beings in New Cresta who was different, an ancient mech named H9, an autonomous service robot left behind by a long-dead corporate mining outfit. H9 was a towering figure, standing over 2 meters tall, built with a heavy steel frame, and covered in layers of scratched and faded paint. Its eyes were twin glowing blue orbs, flickering softly in the dim light of the bay. Unlike the humans and aliens of the outpost, the mech was tireless, capable of lifting enormous weights and repairing machinery with precision and care. But it was also lonely, a relic of a forgotten era, shut off from the world by a damaged communication module and programmed only to maintain the equipment around it. Miri approached H9 cautiously, her small hands clutching a cracked, battered tin cup she had found days earlier. She had heard stories about the mech that it sometimes dispensed water or other supplies left over from better times. With a hopeful heart, she stepped forward and called out softly, her voice trembling. "Please, I'm hungry. I promise to pay when I grow up." Her words hung in the stale air, a fragile plea in a world that had forgotten mercy. The mech's glowing eyes flickered as it turned its heavy head toward her, scanning her thin frame and the tin cup in her hands. Its voice was a deep, metallic rumble, surprisingly gentle. "Request unclear. Specify resource needed." It spoke with the programmed patience of a machine designed to assist, yet there was an undertone of curiosity, as if the mech was sensing something unfamiliar about this tiny visitor. "Milk?" Miri stammered, her voice cracking. I'm too small, and there's no milk to buy. Please, I promise to pay when I grow up." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she looked up at the towering machine, hoping against hope for a kindness she rarely encountered. For a moment, the mech's processors whirred in quiet contemplation. Milk was not part of its regular inventory. Its purpose was to repair and maintain, not to nurture. But somewhere deep within its core, beyond circuits and code, there seemed to be a flicker of something, an echo of the caretaking protocols it had once been programmed to assist with in its long-past service days. The mech's hand, large and rough, moved slowly toward a dusty cabinet in the corner of the bay, its metal fingers prying open a drawer to reveal a dented canister labeled simply nutrient supply. It was meant for emergency rations, designed to sustain life in hostile environments. H9 reached down, lifting the canister carefully and attaching a small dispensing nozzle. The liquid inside was thick and creamy, an artificial substitute for milk designed to provide nourishment when nothing else was available. The mech carefully filled Miri's tin cup with the warm liquid, the soft hiss of the dispenser filling the silent space. Miri's eyes widened in disbelief and gratitude as she took the cup, holding it close as if it were a treasure. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. She took a small sip, the warmth spreading through her like a balm against the cold emptiness that had plagued her for so long. The mech watched silently, its glowing eyes reflecting the fading light of the setting suns, as if witnessing the fragile hope of a small alien girl rekindled by a simple act of compassion. In that moment, amidst the dust and decay of a forgotten world, a bond was quietly forged, one that would ripple far beyond the limits of New Cresta and challenge the very nature of what it meant to be alive, to care, and to hope. For the mech and the alien girl, their unlikely encounter was just the beginning of a journey neither could have anticipated, a journey that would test the boundaries of humanity, machine, and the fragile ties that bind them all. The crimson skies of Xylox 7 deepened into an ominous dusk, and the air thickened with the scent of burning fuel and scorched metal. Miri clutched the small tin cup close to her chest as she settled on the cold concrete floor of the maintenance bay, the artificial milk's warmth spreading slowly through her hollow belly. She drank cautiously, afraid that this moment of comfort might vanish if she hurried too fast. Around her, the cavernous base stretched out like a tomb of forgotten technology, shadows pooling in corners where broken engines and twisted hull plates rested under layers of rust and dust. The mech, H9, stood quietly nearby, its eyes dimmed slightly, as if watching over the fragile life it had chosen to help. It was an odd protector, forged from cold steel and ancient programming, yet it exhibited a peculiar softness that no one in New Cresta had expected from the mechanical giant. 4 days before, Miri had scavenged whatever little scraps she could find, half-eaten rations dropped by miners, empty bottles with the faintest drops of nutrient fluid, even cracked tubes of medicinal gel long expired. Hunger was a constant companion, gnawing relentlessly at her insides, and thirst burned a cruel trail through her parched throat. Her kind was not built for hardship, but necessity had hardened her fragile body beyond what others thought possible. Yet hunger was not the only torment. Loneliness shadowed her steps as keenly as the ever-present dust. There were no kindred souls here, no one who looked past her tattered clothes and dusty skin to see the scared, hopeful child beneath. The miners and traders of New Cresta were consumed by their own battle's corporate debts, lost contracts, fractured families, and had no room for a lost alien girl with nothing to offer. Despite that, Miri held on to a quiet resolve. She had a promise she whispered to herself in the dark moments before sleep. I promise to pay when I grow up. It was not just an idle phrase, but a vow she clung to with desperate hope. One day, she would earn enough credits to repay kindnesses like the Mech's offering of milk, repay the small mercies and the rare smiles that had kept her alive. That thought gave her the strength to rise each morning and face the cruel wasteland anew. But tonight, as the two suns finally vanished beyond the horizon, the settlement's meager lights flickering on like stars against the darkening sky, something shifted. A change whispered on the dry wind, subtle and yet profound, a spark of possibility stirring in a place that had long forgotten such things. H9 sensors detected a faint disturbance in the settlement's network, a signal pinging weakly through the dying frequencies. The mech turned its heavy head toward the source, the blue glow in its eyes pulsing with renewed attention. This anomaly was unlike anything it had cataloged before, something beyond mere machinery, beyond data streams and mechanical fault codes. It was a call for help, but cloaked in subtlety, hidden beneath layers of static and encryption. For the mech, whose primary function was to maintain and protect, this signal was a beacon, a challenge, and a duty entwined in equal measure. Miri, oblivious to the mech's silent awakening, lay curled against a stack of crates, the warmth from the milk easing the ache in her limbs. Her thoughts drifted, fragile and tentative, toward memories of a home she barely remembered, vivid flashes of crystalline forests bathed in soft golden light, the laughter of siblings long lost to the ravages of war, and the gentle hands of a mother who had whispered promises of safety that now seemed like distant echoes. The crash that had thrown her here had been sudden, violent, a shattering rupture in the vast tapestry of space and time. Since then, survival had been a narrow path, carved with careful steps and silent prayers. Yet in this bleak and forgotten place, she had found an unexpected ally, not in the weathered faces of the miners or the wary traders, but in the towering mech who now stood sentinel nearby. Though its metal form was cold and unyielding, its actions spoke of something deeper, a burgeoning empathy programmed into its core, but seldom activated in the harsh realities of outpost life. H9's processors hummed as it calculated the energy reserves in its nutrient stores and the likely duration before its next maintenance cycle. It understood that aiding this fragile creature was a deviation from protocol, a breach in routine. Yet the mech's decision circuits settled firmly on one course: protection. As the night deepened, the settlement grew quieter, the usual bustle replaced by whispered conversations and the soft hum of generators struggling to keep systems online. Miri drifted into a restless sleep, her tiny body nestled amid the cold metal and dust, warmed by the lingering comfort of the milk and the silent watch of the mech. Outside, the twin moons rose, casting pale silver light over the jagged landscape, bathing New Cresta in a ghostly glow. Somewhere beyond the outpost's fragile boundaries, danger stirred corporate enforcers, bounty hunters, and creatures adapted to the planet's cruelty moved unseen, drawn by the promise of salvage and profit. In this fragile moment, as the mech stood guard and the girl dreamed of a future beyond survival, the quiet bond between machine and child deepened, a bond that would soon be tested in ways neither could have imagined. For in the shadows of Xylox 7, beneath layers of dust and despair, a story was unfolding, a story of hope, of courage, and of the unexpected ways compassion could ignite even the coldest steel. Chapter 2: Shadows of the Past and Sparks of a Future. The morning dawned slowly over New Cresta, the twin suns bleeding their harsh light across the jagged horizon, illuminating a world that seemed suspended between ruin and survival. The red dust that had settled overnight sparkled faintly like scattered rubies, yet the air was heavy with the scent of oil and scorched metal, a reminder that life here was a constant struggle, an ongoing war against the relentless decay of the universe itself. The miners and traders of the outpost moved about their routines with weary determination, faces etched by hardship and eyes shadowed with the knowledge that their existence was precarious at best. Yet among them, the small alien girl known as Miri was beginning to stir with a flicker of purpose deeper than mere survival. The warmth of the mech's unexpected kindness had settled deep within her, awakening a fragile hope she barely dared to nurture. Miri's sleep had been restless, haunted by flickering images and whispers from a past that felt both distant and achingly near. She awoke to the soft, mechanical hum of H9 stirring beside her, its glowing eyes scanning the space with a quiet vigilance that felt almost maternal. The mech's frame, battered yet unyielding, stood like a guardian sentinel in the flickering light of the early day. Slowly, as if stirred by instinct, H9 extended a heavy, yet careful hand towards her, offering a small piece of nutrient bar salvaged from its stores. Miri accepted it with trembling fingers, the sweet taste unfamiliar, yet comforting as it soothed the persistent ache within her. This simple act of sharing was a silent acknowledgement, a bond quietly forged between flesh and machine, fragile yet profound. The day unfolded with the grinding rhythm of New Cresta's tenuous life. Miners labored in the pits, digging through the planet's scarred surface for fragments of, or that might fetch a price in distant starports. Traders bartered and haggled over salvaged goods, their voices sharp with exhaustion and greed. Amid this harsh reality, Miri moved cautiously, shadowed by the mech's watchful presence. The settlement's inhabitants eyed the pair with a mixture of curiosity, suspicion, and barely concealed disdain. It was a place where alliances were forged on necessity, and trust was a currency rarer than any mineral. To most, a starving alien child and a hulking mech were anomaly symbols of vulnerability or obsolescence in a universe that prized strength and utility above all. Yet beneath the surface of this battered community, currents of unrest began to ripple. The corporate overseers who had long abandoned New Cresta were sending emissaries and mercenaries, eager to reclaim lost assets and reassert control over the mining rights. Their arrival was cloaked in shadow and threat-heavily armed patrols, mechanized enforcers, and whispered rumors of brutal crackdowns. The fragile peace of the outpost trembled on the edge of chaos, and those who dwelled here knew that any spark could ignite a conflagration that would consume them all. For Miri and H9, this meant danger was no longer distant, it was fast approaching, threatening to shatter the fragile world they had come to inhabit. Amidst the turmoil, Miri's thoughts returned again and again to the promise she had whispered in the dark, the vow to repay kindness when she grew strong enough. It was a beacon guiding her steps through the shadows of doubt and despair. But strength was elusive, a distant dream made more urgent by the arrival of unexpected allies and hidden enemies. One afternoon, as the twin suns hung low, casting long shadows over the settlement, Miri followed H9 to the outer limits of New Cresta, to a place where the wreckage of an ancient ship lay half-buried in the red sands. The vessel was a relic from a forgotten war, its hull scarred by time and battle, yet still humming faintly with dormant power. The mech's processors flickered as it accessed dormant data cores, searching for answers in a sea of digital ghosts. Miri watched with wide eyes as the mech's arms moved with purpose, prying open compartments and reconnecting broken circuits. There was a strange beauty in the dance of metal and light, a testament to resilience and the possibility of renewal. The ancient ship was more than a relic. It was a symbol of forgotten glory and a potential beacon for the future. As the day faded into twilight, the mech activated the ship's systems, and a holographic map flickered to life, casting eerie blue light over their faces. It revealed star systems long abandoned and colonies lost to time, along with coordinates pointing toward a distant world that might hold the key to Miri's survival and perhaps the salvation of New Cresta itself. But hope was shadowed by the specter of betrayal. In the dark corners of the outpost, agents of the corporate overlords whispered of the mech's unusual behavior and the alien girl's presence. To them, Miri was a liability, a potential threat to their plans, a wild card that could unravel years of careful control. A bounty was placed on her, and mercenaries began to hunt through the desert wastes, their cold eyes searching for signs of the fragile child and her mechanical guardian. The chase was relentless, pushing Miri and H9 to the limits of endurance and cunning. Through abandoned tunnels, across treacherous canyons, and beneath the blazing suns, they fled a fragile alliance tested by the harshness of the universe and the cruelty of those who sought to crush them. Yet in the midst of this peril, moments of tenderness and humanity blossomed. Miri learned to trust in the mech's silent strength, while H9 adapted its protocols to protect not just machinery, but a fragile life teetering on the edge of extinction. Together, they navigated a world that had forgotten kindness, forging a path through darkness with nothing but hope and determination. The girl's promise to repay kindness became a lifeline, a vow that carried the weight of generations and the possibility of a future where survival was more than mere endurance. As the chapter closed, the stars emerged one by one in the vast expanse overhead, a glittering tapestry that seemed to whisper of journeys yet to come. Miri and H9 stood side by side beneath the cold light, ready to face whatever trials awaited them. Their story was just beginning, a story of courage, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between flesh and machine in a galaxy that had long forgotten the meaning of mercy. Chapter 3: Beneath the Iron Sky, Secrets and Sacrifices. The oppressive heat of Xylox 7's twin suns had finally faded into a bruised purple twilight, yet the dust still clung stubbornly to every surface, the skin of the planet, the battered machines, and the weary inhabitants of New Cresto alike. Beneath the iron sky, the outpost bore scars deeper than the cracked soil, scars of abandonment, betrayal, and a struggle for survival that had stretched over countless cycles of the suns. The Mech, H9, stood unwavering by Miri's side, a silent colossus whose metallic form seemed both out of place and strangely at home amid the wreckage and rust. The bond between them had grown deeper than protector and ward. It was a connection forged in hardship, trust, and the desperate hope for something better amid the wasteland's cruelty. Miri's eyes, once dull with hunger and fear, now shone with a quiet resolve as she looked toward the horizon, where the faint flicker of distant lights marked the presence of New Cresta's last refuge, an underground vault rumored to contain not only supplies but the echoes of a forgotten civilization's technology. The Mech's data cores had revealed the vault's location from the ancient ship's holographic map, and with it, a possibility of salvation that transcended mere survival. But reaching it meant traversing the dead zone, a vast expanse of hazardous terrain riddled with unstable ground, lethal electrical storms, and the restless spirits of automated defense systems left to guard secrets long buried. The journey toward the vault was no simple trek. It was a test of endurance, courage, and the fragile alliance between child and machine. Miri's steps were careful but determined as they navigated the crumbling paths, her small form moving with the grace of one who had learned to live in shadows and silence. H9's heavy boots left deep impressions in the dust, each step a reminder of the machine's enduring strength and unwavering purpose. The mech's sensors scanned constantly, warning of unseen dangers, the tremors of the earth beneath, the faint flicker of rogue drones hunting intruders, and the oppressive weight of a storm brewing on the far edge of the dead zone. The air itself seemed charged, humming with the latent energy of systems designed to protect a secret worth dying for. As they crossed the threshold into the dead zone, the sky erupted in violent flashes of lightning, arcs of blue-white energy tearing through the heavy clouds in a chaotic dance of light and sound. The storm was no natural occurrence but the manifestation of a defense grid long since abandoned, its systems malfunctioning yet still fiercely protective. H9's shielding protocols engaged, creating a protective barrier around Miri and itself as they pressed forward, the mech's arms outstretched to absorb and deflect the electrical fury that sought to cleave them apart. The child's heart pounded in her chest, fear tempered by a fierce determination to reach the vault, to unlock the mysteries that might save her and this forsaken outpost. Their progress was slow and perilous. Each step forward was measured against the deadly environment, each moment fraught with the possibility of collapse, failure, or death. Yet amidst the chaos, Moments of unexpected beauty surfaced, the eerie glow of bioluminescent fungi clinging to the cracked stone walls, the haunting calls of distant creatures adapted to the storm's wrath, and the quiet companionship that grew between the girl and the mech. H9, designed for precision and calculation, began to show signs of adaptation, modifying its movements to shield Miri more instinctively, responding to her needs with a care that transcended programming. It was as if the machine had discovered a new purpose, one that went beyond cold maintenance and into the realm of guardianship and connection. Days bled into nights as they traversed the dead zone, the storm's fury ebbing and flowing like a living beast. Miri's strength waned, but the mech's nutrient dispensers provided sustenance, and its internal heating units warded off the chilling cold that followed the storm's passing. In quiet moments beneath the fractured sky, Miri spoke softly of her homeworld, a place of shimmering crystal forests, of warmth and laughter, of family lost but not forgotten. Her voice was a fragile thread weaving hope into the desolation, and H9 listened, storing each word in its vast memory banks, as if cataloging the essence of a life worth protecting. But the dead zone was not the only peril. As they neared the vault, shadows moved, figures cloaked in the dust and darkness. Mercenaries and bounty hunters sent by the corporate overlords who coveted the vault's secrets for their own ruthless ends. The outpost's fragile peace shattered with the clash of gunfire and the roar of energy weapons, echoes of a conflict that had little regard for innocence or mercy. Miri and H9 found themselves hunted, their flight turning into a desperate battle for survival. The mech's heavy frame became both shield and weapon, its powerful limbs tearing through enemies with brutal efficiency, while its sensors shielded Miri from harm. Amidst the chaos, Miri made a choice, a sacrifice born from courage and love. Seeing the mech overwhelmed by the sheer number of attackers, she plunged into the heart of the battle, her small hands clutching a makeshift device scavenged from the ancient ship's wreckage. It was a disruptor, capable of short-circuiting the mercenaries' weapons and communications, but at great risk to herself. With a cry that pierced the storm's roar, she activated the device, sending a pulse of energy rippling through the battlefield. The mercenaries' weapons faltered, their systems crashing in a cascade of sparks and smoke. But the cost was great. The disruptor's blast threw Miri violently backward, her body limp and lifeless amidst the swirling dust. The mech, sensing the loss of its ward, surged forward with a ferocity that shook the ground, crushing the last of their foes and shielding the girl's fragile form beneath its protective bulk. The battle was won, but the victory was hollow. Miri's breaths were shallow, her life hanging by the thinnest of threads as the storm finally began to fade into a calm that felt almost sacred. In the aftermath, beneath the vault's heavy doors, the mech cradled the girl as if she were the most precious cargo in the galaxy. The secrets they sought were within reach, and with them, the hope for a future that might redeem the past. As H9 accessed the vault's archives, ancient holograms flickered to life, revealing truths that could reshape destinies, the legacy of a civilization that had thrived and fallen, the power to heal worlds, and the possibility of breaking free from the chains of corporate greed and desolation. Miri's eyes fluttered open, weak but alive, and she smiled, a faint, shimmering beacon of hope in the darkness. The mech's glowing eyes softened, reflecting the bond between them, a bond forged in sacrifice, resilience, and the unwavering promise of a better tomorrow. Together, beneath the iron sky of Xylox 7, they had faced death and emerged with the seeds of redemption. The journey was far from over, but in that moment, amidst the ruins and the stars, Miri and H9 found something precious. The undeniable truth that even in the harshest worlds, life could bloom anew, carried on the fragile wings of hope and the steadfast heart of courage. Chapter 4, Redemption Beyond the Dust, the Promise Fulfilled. The silent expanse of New Cresta lay cloaked beneath the cold embrace of the twin moons, their pale light casting fragile shadows over the battered remains of the outpost that had once seemed destined to crumble beneath the weight of neglect and despair. The twin suns had long since vanished behind the jagged horizons of Xylox 7, leaving the world bathed in a spectral glow that revealed every scar etched into the cracked earth and corroded metal alike. Yet within this desolate tableau, a spark of something greater had ignited, a flame born of unlikely companionship, sacrifice, and the unyielding will to forge a new destiny amid the ruins of the old. Miri lay nestled within the heart of the ancient vault, her body fragile and weakened from the ordeal that had nearly claimed her life, but her spirit blazing with renewed determination. The Mech, H9, stood sentinel beside her, a towering guardian whose steel frame bore the scars of battles fought and won. The vast chamber around them pulsed with dormant power, ancient consoles and holographic interfaces flickering to life under the Mech's expert touch. The vault held secrets long buried beneath layers of dust and corporate deception technology from a civilization that had harnessed the forces of nature itself, healing worlds, empowering lives, and reshaping the very fabric of existence. For the first time in decades, this knowledge was no longer lost to the shadows but poised to breathe life into a world gasping for salvation. Days stretched into cycles as H9 tirelessly worked to restore the vault's systems, accessing archives that detailed the rise and fall of the civilization that had once thrived here. Miri, though weakened, absorbed every fragment of knowledge shared by the Mech, her mind a sponge thirsty for understanding. The child's promise to repay kindness when she grew had evolved into a vow to uplift not only herself, but the countless souls trapped in the merciless grasp of corporate tyranny and planetary desolation. This promise now carried the weight of a mission, one that transcended survival and embraced the possibility of renewal. Outside the vault, New Cresta simmered with tension and anticipation. The arrival of corporate enforcers had shifted from threat to occupation, their forces tightening control over the outpost, imposing harsh regulations and exacting brutal taxes on the miners and traders. Yet whispers of resistance began to ripple through the settlement factions united by desperation and the flickering hope kindled by Miri and H9's discovery. The ancient technology hidden in the vault was not merely a relic. It was a beacon of empowerment, a chance to reclaim autonomy and restore balance to a fractured world. Amidst the growing unrest, Miri's transformation was undeniable. Her body, once frail and scarred by hunger, began to heal, nourished by the vault's advanced medical systems and the Mech's unwavering care. Her eyes sparkled with newfound confidence and a wisdom beyond her years. The child who had once begged for milk now stood poised to lead a revolution not through violence alone, but through knowledge, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds forged in adversity. H9, once a mere machine bound by programming, had become her partner, protector, and mentor, a symbol of the harmony possible between flesh and steel, between hope and duty. Together, they emerged from the vault to face the world beyond an outpost teetering on the edge of collapse, yet brimming with potential. The Mech's systems hummed with renewed purpose, integrating the ancient technology into its core, enhancing its strength, agility, and capacity to serve not as an instrument of war, but as a guardian of peace and progress. Miri's voice, once a whispered plea, now carried the authority of a leader who understood both the fragility and resilience of life. The confrontation with the corporate overlords came not with a clash of weapons, but with the undeniable force of unity and knowledge. The miners, traders, and scavengers rallied behind Miri and H9, their collective will transforming the outpost into a bastion of resistance and hope. The ancient technologies unlocked within the vault provided tools to heal the land, protect the people, and dismantle the systems of oppression. Energy shields shimmered over the settlement, sustainable power flowed through once-dead circuits, and communications networks connected New Cresta to distant allies eager to join the cause. In the days that followed, Miri fulfilled her promise not through debts paid or credits exchanged, but by giving back in the only way she knew, through courage, kindness, and a vision for a future where no child would suffer hunger or loneliness. Her story became legend across the Outer Rim, a testament to the power of compassion and the strength found in unexpected alliances. The Mech, once a forgotten relic, was celebrated as a hero, its transformation a symbol of the boundless possibilities when machine and humanity worked in harmony. As peace settled over New Cresta, Miri stood atop a ridge overlooking the settlement, the twin moons casting a gentle glow over the revitalized world. Beside her, H9 hummed softly, its sensors reflecting the stars above. The child who had begged for milk was now a beacon of hope, her promise fulfilled not through wealth or power, but through the unyielding spirit to rise above adversity and kindle light where there was once only darkness. Their journey was far from over, but in that moment, beneath the infinite expanse of the cosmos, Miri and the Mech shared a silent understanding, one forged in trials, sacrifice, and the enduring belief that even in the harshest worlds, the promise of a better tomorrow was worth fighting for. The renewed vitality of New Cresta did not come swiftly or easily. The outpost's transformation was a painstaking process, where every victory was carved out through sweat, determination, and the indomitable will of its unlikely champions. Miri, once a frail girl begging for the smallest mercy, now stood at the forefront of a burgeoning community, reclaiming its dignity from the ashes of neglect. The vault's ancient technology, long dormant beneath layers of dust and silence, began to pulse with life. Advanced environmental systems purified the poisoned air, nutrient synthesizers offered nourishment where none had existed before, and power grids hummed steadily, free from the corporate chokehold that had throttled the settlement for decades. H9's form had changed as well. No longer a mere relic of obsolete programming, the Mech had integrated the vault's enhancements into its core systems, evolving beyond its original design. It moved with a fluid grace unexpected from its towering frame, its sensors heightened to detect threats and opportunities alike, and its synthetic voice carried the weight of wisdom born from centuries of accumulated knowledge. But beneath the alloy and circuitry, it was the bond with Miri that remained its true driving force, living testament to what could blossom when machine and heart intertwined in purpose and empathy. Together, they rallied the miners, scavengers, and traders, uniting disparate factions under a shared vision to reclaim their home, protect their people, and forge a future where no one would suffer the hunger and loneliness that had defined the outpost's dark years. Word spread quickly beyond the barren wastes. Whispers of New Cresta's revival reached the ears of neighboring settlements and rebellious factions across the Outer Rim. The promise of renewed hope kindled flames of resistance against the corporate overlords who had long exploited the region's resources and people without regard. The inevitable confrontation arrived beneath the blood-red skies of a rising storm. Corporate enforcers, their ranks bolstered by mercenaries and mechanized war machines, descended upon New Cresta intent on crushing the rebellion and reclaiming the vault's secrets. The battle that ensued was brutal and unrelenting, a clash of steel and fire under the wrathful gaze of the twin suns. Yet Miri and H9, bolstered by the unity of the people and the power of ancient technology, stood unyielding. The Mech's enhanced systems tore through the enemy lines with calculated precision, shielding the vulnerable and striking with the force of a storm incarnate. Miri moved among the defenders like a beacon, her courage inspiring those who had long forgotten what hope felt like. In the heart of the conflict, the child who once begged for a simple cup of milk faced the greatest test of all. As enemy fire rained down and explosions shook the ground, Miri activated the vault's ancient defense protocol's energy barriers surged forth, enveloping the outpost in a protective embrace that turned the tide of battle. The mercenaries faltered, their advance halted by a force they neither understood nor could overcome. The corporate commander's fury was met with the unbreakable resolve of a community fighting not just for survival, but for freedom and justice. When the dust settled and the twin moons rose once more, New Cresta stood victorious not as a battered outpost, but as a symbol of resilience and rebirth. The corporate overlords had been repelled, their grip shattered by the courage of a girl and a machine who dared to defy fate. Miri's promise had been fulfilled not through wealth or repayment in credits, but through an act of profound generosity and strength that transcended words. She had given back life to a forgotten world, inspired unity among strangers, and forged a legacy that would echo through the stars. The Mech, once cold and unfeeling, now carried within its core the warmth of companionship and purpose. Together, Miri and H9 9 looked beyond the horizon, where the stars beckoned with endless possibilities. Their journey was far from over, but the darkness that once threatened to consume them had been pushed back, replaced by a dawn glowing with hope and the promise of new beginnings. Under the vast cosmic canopy, the unlikely pair-child and machine, survivor and guardian walked forward into the future they had fought so hard to claim. In a universe often cruel and indifferent, they had proven that even the smallest acts of kindness and courage could ignite revolutions, heal wounds, and light the way toward a better tomorrow. And so, beneath the ever-watchful stars of Xylox 7, their story found its end not in silence or surrender, but in the triumphant song of life reborn and a promise kept against all odds.